After having two pretty intense weeks of writing, I knew a slowdown would occur. Like it always happens when I push myself really hard, that I kind of lose the steam and the motivation and maybe some of that like creative well of just like coming up with new words and creating new worlds. This isn't too surprising, and I've been taking it a little bit easy this last week. I've started to work through some of those words that I did write during that period of time, and I'm still loving this story. I think also part of why I am slowing down is we are just before probably the last big push to finish this first draft. And I'm kind of wanting to savor this moment. I always do end up taking like a little bit of a break kind of right before the final like 20 or 30,000 words. And a lot of it is to do with the fact that like this is my last chance to be in like the purest form of this novel. Like when the first novel's complete, that's when we have to think about revisions, whether developmental or line edits or all this kind of stuff. So this is like one of the last moments I have in the before, this world has truly been created and other people will probably give me opinions and ideas and read it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to savor it, especially because this is a project that I've been dreaming up for so long. If you're new here, my name is Josie and I'm currently on the first draft of an epic fantasy book with 3 points of view. And I've been writing each of the 3 points of view as separate character arcs that I'm going to be combining once we're all done here. So we are on the third character. We've just hit about like the midpoint, or at least that's what I'm catching up to right now. I have about half of a chapter left to kind of go through before I'm ready to hit some new ground, write some new scenes. And each of these point of views have been about 45 to 50,000 words. So that's why we are nearing the end of this book at an incredible speed. And I honestly can't believe that we're so close to having like the idea I've had in my head for so long actually on paper and other people can see it and read it. And I've been thinking even about like trying to print out, how you can get like those books like online, you can print your book and have it sent to you. I've been thinking about doing that as well to try and read it that way because I think that could be really cool. So this writing vlog is going to be pretty chill. It's all about just slowly plucking away at things, so making some progress until I see the finish line and I know I'm just going to do that final big push, lock in, and get this thing done. I now remember why I did a bunch of rewriting rather than continue on into the midpoint. And that's because I don't really know what's going on. Ugh, I feel like this is like an issue that comes up a lot is I have like such a clear idea for the beginning of the story. And then I'm like, these five things need to happen somewhere here in the middle, like around the midpoint to the third act in this like act two, part two section. And then I know how it ends. But I'm now in this like no man's land of just like trying to figure out how to get the things I need to accomplish accomplished and connect to the next scene. It's like we're island hopping, and right now I'm like treading water in the middle, trying to navigate. I'd gone in one direction in the last couple of chapters, so part of the rewrite was going back through them to kind of gauge, does this make sense? Do I like this direction? Just because the further I get off course, the harder it is to then course correct. So I feel really good about everything except this last half chapter. So I think I'm gonna have to go through it again and really see if we're going in the right direction. There'll be a lot of trial and error actually in the next couple of days as we fight our way through this murkier part of the story. It's time for another writing session. I have no plans this evening. Well, my only plan is to try and get some writing done. I really want just a solid, long writing session because I think I actually cracked where I need to go next. I don't know the entire sequence that's coming up, but the way I'm leaving this chapter, I'm finally finishing up the half chapter that I had left to do and expanding on it and fleshing it out. And I have in my head the next chapter that needs to happen, as well as an idea vaguely for the chapter that's going to come after that. And I think that might connect with some of the ideas I had planned for later. So I want to just make sure first that all those things fit together before I get too far into this. So I'm actually going to spend the first bit of today's writing session just brainstorming and going through my outline a little bit more. But I'm really excited about where I'm planning on taking the story. Like, this is the kind of stuff that just makes me excited to add at least a little bit of pantsing into my writing because there's only so much you can outline and think of in advance. And there's things that just like naturally come to you, like fun twists or just like places you can take the story that you wouldn't have thought maybe from the outset. I'm feeling really good about the next chapter too. And I think that might be a lot of the connective tissue that I need to figure out what's between now and the third act, the end of the story. I didn't end up writing for a couple of days and it is now Sunday and I really wanted to get back into it because this week like I want to try and get writing in every day at least like an hour. But part of the reason why I was delaying was because I had reached a little bit of an issue. Yes, I had joined kind of these two sections together, but a lot of the like disaster dark moment of this story is pivotal on the main character having done something earlier. And the changes I made no longer allowed that to be possible. So it either meant that I had to try and find a way to put it back in, which I really like the way it is a lot better now, or I had to then change kind of that moment of what triggers the dark moment and kind of, but if I do that, like so much of what I really liked about the back half of his character arc, it's important that, these things are set up. And the way this rolls out, like it makes the end of the book, I think, so much stronger. And there's a lot more emotional stakes. I have to be a little vague because I don't want to spoil anything. Since I had so much uncertainty and I kind of like knew where I needed to go, but it's almost like I was on a train hurtling towards a broken part of the track that I was just going to like deal with when the time came. I was a little hesitant to jump back in because whenever there's an issue, it just like weighs in my mind a little bit. But the only way to get through this is to just give it a go and see what happens. So I sat myself down at my desk and I wrote for almost 2 hours. I've written almost 3,500 words. So in total in this manuscript, we have surpassed today 140,000 words. We're at 141, 163, which is just incredible. But the better part of it is I figured out how to end the chapter that I just wrote in a way that reintroduces that pivotal aspect that'll then trigger the dark moment later on. So it's maybe happening a little bit late. I'll have to see once I do like revisions and read through it if it's not introduced soon enough. But I kind of like where it is and I think it'll work. The rest of the book will work from here on out, which means if nothing else comes up, we should have pretty smooth sailing towards the end of this book. There may be small things I'll have to add later that are just like supporting different aspects that I'm just like not thinking about right now that aren't like key ingredients to the bigger picture. So that may be, but for the most part, I'm feeling pretty solid about the direction the story is going because each of these three character arcs, the three stories, they do feel pretty bare bones since I'm used to writing like 70 to 100,000 word long thriller books where I have so much more space to do a full character arc. I feel like there's a lot more instances of having like added fluff, scenes that don't really need to be here. But because I'm literally trying to cram in a similar character arc into 45 to 50,000 words, I'm having to be a lot more picky about exactly which scenes need to happen and then trying to fill those scenes with as much as possible to justify why they're there and also just to like get things going so that way I don't have to have another scene to address something later on. And aside from these last couple of weeks of like having to string together some scenes and kind of getting a little bit lost around this midpoint, this character arc has come together really well. Like I'm actually surprised because this is my first time doing a more of like a military angle, a military story, and I was really unsure about the battle scenes. I had a battle scene in my first section of the book before everyone launches into their own character arc, and that was really tough for me to write. And there are still some battle scenes in this, but they felt a lot easier since these battles are very unique to the circumstances, and I'm not trying to replicate any other kind of like medieval battles or anything like that. But as well, something I'd thought about before coming into this that made me nervous, that hasn't been an issue at all, is this is the first time I'm writing from a male point of view. Like every single book I've written from the time that I was a child up until starting Amal's character arc, I haven't written a single, even like a chapter from a male's point of view. And it wasn't by choice necessarily. Like in my head, I wasn't entirely like, no, these stories have to be, from a female point of view. I don't want to write from a guy's point of view. But I think it just naturally happened because a lot of the themes and storylines I was interested in were ones that I could relate to and ones that were inspired by my own experience and also the experience of like friends and people I knew. So that's just what I gravitated towards. But at the end of the day, like people are people. So it's actually not that hard, especially because I'm using a pretty classic archetype. It's like the good, honest soldier. Maybe not always super, super honest, but like the guy with integrity. So it's like really easy to write. There's not a ton of like nuance in the sense of like they're not really morally gray. You can kind of count on them to do the right thing at all times. So yeah, I'm gonna have to start making dinner soon, but I still have more time tonight if I want to keep writing. But I've already written almost 3,500 words today, so I don't want to push it too much, especially because I want to start getting into more of a consistent rhythm as I slowly pick back up, and hopefully we have our final big dash to the end. I think the time has come for me to do my big final push to finish out this draft one. I finished another chapter last night and I've been writing a little bit the last couple of days, but I'm ready to just like sit down for extended writing periods and just get it out. I don't think the writing is going to be super good in these last chapters just because I think I just need to get the story out as quickly as possible, and get through the third act. There is still 7 chapters to go, but the seventh and last one's going to be pretty short. So that's still 6 more chapters of like quite meaty events going on. But I think they will be on the shorter side relative to the other chapters for this character in the book. And I kind of like that like near the end when everything's happening faster, you're like turning the pages faster, you're hitting new chapters faster. So I think it'll work. But I just need to get the story out. I need to get it down. So I think this is where I'm going to leave you because we got through this like chiller plateau where I was kind of recovering a little bit from pushing hard while still trying to like maintain some momentum. And now we're going into another intense push.